Come on. Okay, there we go. Very slow. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara. It's going to be a short show this morning because Dave's got to go early.
Yeah.
Okay, so so hang on a minute. Just put this in the right order. Okay, so there was an incident at the Martindale Bridge, multi-car crash on the Martindale Bridge yesterday on the QEW. And the OPP media sergeant Kerry Schmidt said it was a collision in the Fort Erie bound lanes and only involved car damage, basically.
Well, that's a mercy.
And it's weird because I thought, okay, bring this up, Martindale Bridge, because where Martindale is of course where the Toronto-bound lane closures exist currently.
Yes, so, well, this was Fort Erie bound, so it wouldn't affect that probably. But in any case, you had an accident, and there was on the highway, and there was no fatalities or major injuries. So that's a mercy, man.
It is a mercy, yeah. I saw it yesterday, and I thought, okay, but then, it's like I was swore there was going to be an update, but there wasn't. That's about the size of it. And, it's good in a way that it wasn't on this side of the road, which had the lane closures.
Well,
it looks like most people have, behave sensibly.
Well, I don't know. The way we drive nowadays, I don't know. It's just so I don't know what caused or precipitated the accident, but there was nobody killed, nobody hurt, only vehicular damage. That's a good thing.
I reported one I was coming home. I was actually at work during the Christmas break between Christmas and New Year. And on the 405, there was what I think was a Jeep upside down in the snow. And later on, I saw flowers in the center lane for this. So I rather suspect that was a death, but I couldn't report it until I got off the highway because it was just, way too unsafe. I'm driving in a blizzard.
Well, yeah. So,
I suppose
anyway, just be careful out there. There's lots of construction. Leave way early because construction is going to get in your way.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So it's very, very, very important that that you really key up on certain aspects of what the road availability is. And remember, people are going to be all tense because there's road closures and they're going to do stupid things. So, drive defensively is your best best way of going about
think
there.
About it, leave more time before you go.
Because of road closures, and that because of road closures, there's going to be lots of people that be very tense and that kind of thing. They're going to drive erratically. They're going to try to get ahead of you. If you leave 2 inches between you and the guy in front of you, somebody's gonna jam in there. Always that if you're in situations like that and you leave the space is normally required between you and the guy in front of you, somebody's going to jam their way in there.
Well, what bothers me is I leave plenty of room. I leave what I call the crash cushion in front of me.
That gets filled up. So do I. But that if you do that, it just keeps getting filled up.
Idiot pulls in front of you, and you go, "Thank you very much for getting in my crash cushion."
Yeah. So they take away your crash cushion and you make another crash cushion. Somebody else fills it in.
Yeah.
It's you're better off just to drive a little slower and let everybody take off a bit. But I don't know. If you can avoid the roads right around now, that's the best. But if you can't, just be very careful. Leave with lots of extra time.
Yeah. And especially since it's roadwork season, there's always more accidents on roadworks. It's what we used to call rubbernecking in the in the roadwork zone, where people are standing there looking across the highway, going, "Oh, look at that crunch."
Yeah, usually, quite often, it happens when there's an accident too. There's somebody pulled over.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hi, Betty. So somebody's pulled over to the side of the road, and it looks like they may have had an accident or something. You get all these people. Oh, especially when there's a real accident. Oh, the rubberneckers are unbelievable. What I want to do there is get away from it as fast as possible. But you get all these people sitting down.
I will do this. I will do this, and this if I'm driving, right? Basically, make sure I don't look at that lane. I keep myself focused on the lane I'm driving in.
Yeah, they want to get away from it as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Well, in a ruly way, like quickly move myself away from an accident scene if I find myself close to one, so that emergency trucks or anything else can get in there. But what you do is you get all this lights turning on, your brake lights going on as everybody slows down to have a good long look at the tragedy. No, just get back. Just keep going past it. Just keep going past it.
Yeah, that's right. Stop myself from looking. Put my hand up to my eyes to help me focus straight on the road straight ahead. I've never had an accident because of these sort of things, but there's too many people that do. All right, moving on. Man suspected of shooting 2 Minnesota lawmakers actually surrendered in the woods in Minnesota.
What
is former
guy, the political violence here is shocking to us. This is not an unstable regime somewhere in the world. This is the United States, and you've got a lawmaker, and you've got a guy in a fake police car coming in with a police uniform, and I think he also had a flak jacket on. Comes up to the lawmakers.
Well, he approached former Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark in their home early Saturday in northern Minneapolis suburbs to kill them. That's disgusting.
Jeez, what's going on here?
What's going on?
I can't get out of
the video.
Yeah, the video. I had a couple different news videos up there, but anyway.
But this guy was being arrested on 2 counts of murder and 2 of attempted murder. Basically, so former House Speaker Melissa Hartman and her husband Mark were killed on Saturday, and there's others were injured on. He shot Senator John Hoffman, a Democrat, and his wife Yvette on in their residence as well, about 15 kilometers away from the first one.
This guy's name is Bolter. And his motivation here is Vance Bolter is strange. He had a list of Democrats in his car that he was going to kill, an assassination list. So he got to one. He shot another, and had a list of people he was going to kill. Evidently, why? Like, this guy.
Well, the wives and husbands were clearly collateral damage, weren't they?
Not really. He just wanted to kill everybody, I think, because some of these people, like Hoffman's or Hortman's husband, was involved in politics, but more like committees and that kind of thing. So he was probably a target as well. He is well known as a voice.
Well,
I think
many husbands or wives, not all, many political husbands and wives are involved in committees and things like that.
they still really don't have a motive yet.
Yeah.
It might have something to do with abortion. This fellow was involved in a committee of some sort, a bipartisan committee to do with I don't know, something or other. So he's not always would have been thought of the type of person that would do this. He's also done some missionary work, apparently, or preaching work. He's gone to, I think, Israel or something and done some preaching, or Africa or something. I didn't write up all he did. I was familiar with this yesterday, but I can't remember the details.
He altered his vehicle to make it look like a police car.
Yeah. So what?
And as you said, he had a list of about 70 names.
Yeah, he had a bunch of names. I don't know how many, but he had a list of other names that ostensibly he was supposed to go after, and it's very he stalked his victims. Apparently, he stalked his victims like prey, and he's done months of planning for this. And the assassination of Minnesota lawmaker and her husband and the attempted murder of the second state elected politician unfolded over 90-minute span that was foiled by police. But my God, like, the suspect is this 57-year-old Vance Bolterd, and we really don't know why he went off the rails here.
He was a former political appointee who served on the same state workforce development board as Hoffman.
Yeah, the workforce development board. He was on that. They may have even talked to them. What flipped this guy? You know, we talk about terrorism. We talk about Islamic terrorism. We talk about far right terrorism. We find these things that are and how people get radicalized by these ideals. But here's an ordinary, everyday, seemingly ordinary citizen just gone off the rails at the age of 57. He thinks he's going to assassinate a whole bunch of Democrats after he's worked with some of them. For what reason? What was his intent? And what drove him to this? And there's a lot of speculation that the polarization in the United States right now and the extreme hyperbole about who's bad and who's good, like the Democrats are going to destroy the country or the Republicans are going to destroy the country, that kind of thing is too glaringly evident now. People are losing their ability to logically discern one thing after another. How is it that this guy believed that? I mean, you're supposed to be a religious man, and not an Islamic religious man, a Christian, and he went around and he's killed these people. This really puts things at a whole different level. What is it in the American system that is driving these polarized points of view to where they become violent points of view?
Well, there's no indication in this article about what his political stance is.
No, except that he's apparently strongly against abortion.
Yeah, but there's many people who are strongly against abortion. I bet you'd find that you've got a neighbor who's against abortion. There's many people who are against abortion. That doesn't make them nutcases like this.
Well, that's about one of the only indications they have on this, that he felt that the Democrats were going to precipitate more abortions or something like that. But there's nothing right now that's any indication. So what?
Yeah.
So I'll put that out there. What pushed this guy off the rails? I think he's getting a steady supply of right-wing narrative that he is buying into, that the Democrats are going to destroy the world, turn the United States into a communist country, and have abortions for a dime.
Yeah, but again, if a particular government, and given it's now on the state to rule in favor or against abortion, then if the Democrats, and I don't even know that they do, if the Democrats rule in Minnesota today, then it's incumbent upon you to vote Republican and get rid of that tomorrow, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
You know what? Yeah, but that doesn't explain anything. Why?
No,
I'm asking why this guy lost it.
Yeah, because clearly he did.
Here's a guy that probably did not have probably didn't have any criminal record prior to this.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. He didn't have any criminal record prior to this. Even if he was an opposing Republican on said committees, there's no indication he would go off the rails like this.
Well, he was extremely religious, so his friends say.
Fair.
And I don't know how his religious views got him into this. He was deeply religious and politically conservative views, telling a congregation in Africa 2 years ago that the U.S. was a bad place where most churches didn't oppose abortion. So that's the only indication they really have of why he did what he did so far.
Yeah.
I mean, if he worked on bipartisan committees in that for workplace, I don't know. It was a politically motivated assassination that we can be sure of because of his strong opposition to the Democrats. And
he's supposed to have had a material that's called a manifesto, but the papers were not political or not a political or ideological treaty, according to the police. It was more a notebook listing lawmakers and other people of various thoughts mixed in. Right.
Well, yeah. He had a notebook full of people he didn't like, and somehow this was boiling in him.
Well, it's like me having a notebook that was saying Dave, loves Palestinians, hates Jews type thing, right? Just to be, just to take a kind of, a mad look at you, right? Maybe want to kill him type thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no way I hate Jews, and I'm not.
Well, I know, and I deliberately
for any reason.
And I deliberately mischaracterized you, of course.
Yeah. But what is it? I'm suggesting here is the foment of hate that's happening in the United States now. The kind of thing that's come across in their media, and of course in social media, where they get a lot of hate. They got a lot of hate, and each different influencer cannot make money unless they get their audience emotionally charged.
Yeah,
it would be interesting to see what influenced him to do this if they can find it out. But to dump it on, like, here we go. You get a religious man. So-called deeply religious men go ahead and murder people. Well, we see these in the extremist Islamic peoples, activists, who become deeply religious and somehow become radicalized. Was it his religion that radicalized him, or the politics of the nation that radicalized him? Something radicalized him, and to motivate a political assassination.
And Mike's basically saying two-party politics is a failure. Putting party before country is a huge problem. And
Exactly. Well said, Mike.
And Betty comes up and says the dentist from Nova Scotia, he that massacred all those people, had a uniform jacket and an old car. She thinks.
Yeah, an old police car. Yeah,
Yeah.
this how he got away with murdering a lot of people. Plus, he had illegal arms, most of them from the United States.
Yeah.
So this guy getting a gun for an everyday citizen was no big deal for him in the United States. He could just
not in the US,
you could just go to a gun shop and get it because
really
they wouldn't have been even if they did a background check on this guy, they wouldn't have found anything.
Yeah,
because for all intents and purposes, he's a religious man who has strong religious feelings. He's gone and preached in Africa, and if he's a man of God, that's the last person you would think would do this kind of murder.
The weird thing is the man of God thing. I always think of the turn the other cheek saying that Jesus said as being Christian, as being a large portion of Christian morality, and thinking, why would Christians want to carry arms? Except
that's Christian values say the opposite.
Yeah,
but obviously he felt. It looks to me as if he feels he was on a religious mission. That's the only explanation for now that I can think of. We'll find out a little later on.
Yeah.
Maybe he was schizophrenic. Who knows? There's a 57-year-old man. Obviously, nobody had any doubts about him if they're putting him on the committee. On workshops about work, and things like that.
Yeah, and basically these kind of workshops, you want a broad spectrum of people, usually, people involved in local politics. So you're hearing, potential problems to bills that you're proposing.
So it should be interesting to find out what radicalized this guy. What radicalized a man, ostensibly a Christian man, of deep religious convictions to murder cold-bloodedly two people and attempt to kill the others. The other ones, they had 8 and 9 wounds together.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he managed not to kill them, but he tried. Obviously, he put 8 bullets in one and 9 in the other, and they just happened to survive. But he did manage to kill the other 2 right away. So are we going to see more of this?
Yeah. And Betty's saying just something broke and something triggered by something. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Moving on. Oil prices surge after Israel's strike in Iran. It's interesting because Iran primarily does not have an export of oil. It has a large stock of oil, but Iran doesn't really have an export market of oil other than Russia and China.
Yeah, it supplies oil to non-aligned countries. It supplies oil to China and Russia could take some. Russia has plenty of its own, but for a matter of convenience, it might pump it that way. So Iran has, and it has a clandestine fleet of sort of ghost tankers, kind of with no names on them, where they can fill up a tanker and get it someplace and sell it. But that's where the largest amount of its revenue comes from is oil. And of course, we have a war in the Middle East. Anytime you have a war in the Middle East, the price of oil is going up. I think through the Straits of Hormuz, I think 20% of all the oil used in the world comes from through the Straits of Hormuz. That would be the oil produced by the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, those places. Plus, Saudi Arabia would be shipping oil out on that side of its country as well.
Oh yeah, it was. And okay, so the net result, of course, of this attack is that oil prices surged, stocks fell, and investors sought safety in the US dollar and government bonds on Friday after Israel struck Iranian nuclear and military targets during that attack. So the S&P 500 was down 0.9% on Monday morning's trading. Dow was down 1.4% in Monday morning trading, and NASDAQ was down 0.9% on the same day.
Yeah.
And US benchmark crude price rose by $4.73 to $72.77 a barrel.
Yeah, so obviously they're and the oil companies are gonna use this as an excuse too. Well, obviously, like you said, we have an abundance of oil here in North America. It shouldn't affect us, but it's going to because it's a world market.
Yeah,
this is a sad thing. However, if things really get out of hand and they strike the Iranian oil fields, the Iranians will strike all the other oil fields. That's the promise they've made. For now, Israel has only hit one of their gas fields. And
the primary targets of Friday were more the Revolutionary Guard leaders, weren't they?
Pardon me?
The primary targets of last week were the Revolutionary Guard leaders.
No, their prime targets were the nuke site. Well, of course, they took out as many leaders as they could, military and political, and they also took out the prime. Does this sound familiar? They took out the primary negotiator for the nuclear deal that they were having with the United States. The talks they were having in the United States, the number one negotiator, they took him out.
Yeah.
So how are they going to negotiate when they took out the negotiating team?
A clear indication that they don't want negotiation.
No, they don't want negotiations.
Yeah.
That's the last thing Israel wants to do. Israel wants to rope the United States into a major war here. Now, right now, the United States is involved, of course, because all the jets, all the bombs, all the a good deal of the intelligence all comes from the United States. Plus, the United States is bringing in its heavy boot and saying, "Look, if one bullet goes astray or one piece of missile breaks up in the air and it comes close to any one of our people, we're going to rain death on you." So the Iranians have to be very, very careful here. They have to shoot their missiles directly at Israel and nowhere else. And meanwhile, the Americans are helping the Israelis shoot down all the missiles. So Iran effectively is fighting a war against an air war at present against the United States and Israel. Now, Israel might be the ones in the jets, but the jets are American. Israel might be the one dropping the bombs, but all the bombs are American. Where they're going to be dropping the bombs, the Americans tell them where or help them find the location. So
the other interesting,
this war is the U.S. and Israel versus Iran already.
Yeah.
Can it escalate into something bigger? Sure, it can.
Yeah. Well, also the other thing is that Trump has issued a statement saying that the residents of Tehran should evacuate immediately.
Yes, this is problematic.
Heck
he's issued a warning to the people of Tehran. So what's he doing bombing Tehran? Right, the nuclear site, the major nuclear site, is out of town. It's in a mountain. The Fado or something, a nuclear site is in a mountain, deep in a mountain.
Yeah.
If they're after that, they would take out the people that were working there. That's about it.
Well,
They don't have to worry
yeah, I
about
was going to
the
say
city.
there's a small village associated with that nuclear site, as I understand it, and it's quite remote.
Yeah. So why do the people of Tehran have to leave
Yeah.
if they're not going to bomb Tehran? They've already bombed residential areas in Tehran to get to the different leaders, and of course, there's a lot of damage over and above that. They hit one military leader, they end up killing his family and his neighbors. You know, they go after a nuclear scientist, they kill him, his family, and his neighbors. Because they're in residential areas.
Yeah.
So when Israel says
also hit,
Israel has stated that Iran has targeted civilian areas, and the Israelis have only targeted military targets, is a lie.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I saw a weird statistic over the weekend. It said, "Oh, one good thing about Israel is that the proportion of military, to non-military targets that we hit is 1 in 2, compared to the traditional acceptable rate of 1 in 10. How is 1 in 2 acceptable when it's clearly high, 10 times worse than 1 in 10? Obviously, people who can't do mathematics.
Well, they lie, and there is an element of Iraq here. Remember the weapons of mass destruction argument? That Saddam Hussein has the capability of making a bomb, and he has the capability of ballistic nuclear delivery systems, all of which was a lie. So the weapons of mass destruction did not exist in Iraq. They did not have a burgeoning nuclear facility, and their Scud missiles were like 1940 style. They could barely go anywhere.
They could barely take off, let alone target something properly.
They're probably as much danger to the guy that's sending them than the guy that's going to be landing on.
Yeah.
So that was all a big lie.
Go straight up and straight back down again and blow up on the spot, right?
Yeah. So there's a big lie, basically, because the Israelis are saying, well, we're protecting you, Europe. They're developing missiles and bombs, nuclear bombs that can be dropped on London and Paris. Well, for one thing, their best missile couldn't make it that far. They could only go like maybe half that distance, and they don't have the bomb yet. That's one thing. And why would they? Why would Iran send a bomb to London to nuke London when Britain has nuclear capabilities out at Yingyang? France too. France has all kinds of. France and Britain both have the H bomb, for crying out loud. So if Iran was stupid enough to send a bomb to London, there would be all hell would rain loose on Iran. So there
would be two.
Very idea. Well, my whole point here is it's the weapons of mass destruction all over again, just reinvented.
Yeah, just reinvented, and it's bollocks. sorry, but I just couldn't help myself. It's absolute rubbish.
Yeah, so they're telling, oh wow, Iran's got these missiles that can go right to New York City, right? That's what they're developing. That's what they want. They want to destroy America. No one with half a mind in Iran thinks that they're going to be able to destroy the United States with a couple of A bombs. Even if they had the delivery system, and even if there was a nut that would throw them out, it's just.
Well, aside from anything else, you think about a bomb heading, thrown by Iran heading towards the USA. It's got thousands of miles to go. It's got so much time that almost any. It could be attacked 5 or 6 times easily.
Yeah, even if it's a hypersonic missile. So that basically, what Israelis have done, of course, is to take the average person is very ignorant of any of that and scare them. You know what? Iran's going to drop a bomb on the U.S. It hates the U.S. It's going to try to destroy the U.S. Seriously, yeah. China might be able to do it, but Iran could hardly. Iran has trouble fighting Pakistan. They had a border war with Pakistan, a little clear up. You remember? They had a hard enough time with Pakistan.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. They're hardly a threat to the West.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should ignore them, but they're hardly a threat to the West.
Yeah, and so that's all BS.
Yeah.
And what it is just to make the average person here sort of support the outrages that are happening right now. My greatest fear, of course, is for the Israelis and the Iranians that were going to die that need not have died, and they are already dying. And they were trying to make a nuclear deal. They had a very good nuclear deal under Obama. The Iranians couldn't sneeze without them knowing in their how much nuclear fuel they were enriching for their nuclear power plants, etc., which is a far cry from weapons grade nuclear fissile material. And this is just pretty much ends. And of course, the Trump administration used the idea of negotiations as a ruse to put Iran in a state of ease, a relative ease, because they felt the U.S. says there will be no bombing until after these negotiations, depending on how they go. Well, they were about to meet no man. Everybody's ready to do these negotiations, and the exact thing that Trump said wasn't going to happen happened. A massive raid by Israel. And like I said, it's not really just Israel, but Netanyahu's dragged Trump into a war that all the other presidents have avoided. Netanyahu tried to drag Bush and Obama and Trump and into a war with Iran over the space of the last 20 years or so. All of them resisted, but Trump, big dummy Trump, fell for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the consequence of this is. And I don't know how it's escalated. I can't see Iran fighting for very long because they have very limited capacity. But it can't be good.
Yeah, but if you believe some of the Israelis, Israeli fear mongering, the Iranians have been after Israel for 20 years, and have been looking at an existential threat.
Taking no sides and stepping away from it. Don't take a side for Israel or right now the Arab states have always been very very suspicious of Iran. They are trying to flex their muscle in a region where Israel and Saudi Arabia dominate, kind of. They are a Shia Muslim group, so there's religious tensions here. And they are also an authoritative theocracy, which doesn't help matters. But so is Saudi Arabia. So are the all the other Arab states. They just so I don't know. And Israel has nuclear bombs, so that I don't know.
Okay, well, coming back to Canada again, just to finish off, Poilievre is going to be undergoing a Conservative Party leadership review in next January. This would have happened in court. It's a matter of course. It happens all the time, particularly when a party fails to form a government at a federal election. Normally, it would be seen as a kind of, very often it would be seen as just a nod of approval. But it's going to be happening next January, and Poilievre has got to make sure he gets back into office, hasn't he?
Poilievre has an opportunity here. His Trump-like type of approach of populism did not work, and most people would have voted for him if Trudeau was still in, because Trudeau was obviously not functioning very well.
Yeah.
His government didn't do that well.
Yeah.
So he gets an opportunity here to reinvent himself, and he should take that opportunity. The Trump-like type of populism, and I'll blame the entire Conservative Party on this. They saw that it was working for Trump, and they mimicked it to a point up here. So they were looking for emotional responses and things like that. In amongst their really good ideas, they added that populist type of rhetoric that caused people to throw things at Trudeau when they saw him, or that kind of thing, rather than act like adults and ask him questions. They were bitter. So that Trump light stuff didn't work. So now he can now he can reinvent himself as an honest to God conservative leader, the type that we've had in the past, like the Harpers and the Mulroneys and those ordinary conservative guys, right?
Yeah.
We in Canada, we can see what's happening in the States with the populist type of MAGA thing that's going on, and it's not very comfortable for us up here, and not at all. Even the most dire conservative would not really like what he sees in the MAGA revolution down there. So Poilievre now has a chance to convince the party faithful that he is not like that he is a really good, down-to-earth, solid leader, conservative type guy who will not point across the other aisle and say evil, evil, evil. Instead, say incompetent, maybe, but not overdo it.
I think there's a difference between saying you're incompetent and you're evil.
Yeah, well, he isn't actually saying evil. I'll say that he hasn't gone that far that the Trump people have done, and the left and right down south point at each other and say evil. Up here, it's more disparaging, character assassination and things like that he's used. That won't float up here. And we said that here on this show, that he can't get away with that. And the other conservatives like Doug Ford says, look, whatever you're doing, you're not doing it well enough. You're blowing it. You could have had this election, but the way you're conducting your campaign, it won't float here.
Yeah.
And he didn't listen.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. And that's essentially why we're going to end up with a Conservative Party leadership review, because they're going to be going through, is he the right man? That key question is going to be, is he the right man to lead the Conservatives into the next election?
My point is, the Conservatives have to reinvent themselves, and the party leader has to reinvent themselves. They can't do the Trump light, the MAGA light thing up here. So anyway, I have to go.
Yeah, I know.
Remind everybody that there's been another 40 or so people killed in Gaza. They open up with gunfire on people trying to approach areas where their food is. The IDF has tried to control the food supply, and they're trigger happy. And every time, of course, people are trying to get to the food, and they keep killing people trying to get to the food, and it's outrageous. Their idea is, of course, we're going to keep Hamas away from getting food, but what they're doing is they're screwing it up. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you don't forget Gaza. I got to
And
go early.
And tomorrow's our last show of the week. So goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Yeah. Okay.